You know how it goes. You're completely fired up about a new project, but a few weeks later, it's just sitting there, abandoned. So why does that happen to all of us? Well, in this explainer, we're going to build what we're calling the architecture of completion. It's a whole new framework, and it's based on some really surprising brain science that can literally teach you how to finish what you start. So, does this sound familiar? You get this amazing idea. Maybe you're going to launch a business, learn an instrument, or finally write that book. And for the first few days, you're just pure energy, right? But then you hit a wall. The magic just evaporates, and that project ends up in the graveyard of good intentions with all the others. If that hits close to home, then you are absolutely in the right place. You know, this whole cycle is so common, so frustratingly predictable, that it really deserves its own name. So let's call this first part what it is: the beginning of the end. Okay, the key thing to get here is the symptom. This isn't about you lacking passion or having bad ideas. No, it's a pattern. It's a cycle. You start with all this motivation, but the second you hit any real friction, that moment it stops being all fun and games and starts to feel like actual work, that's the breaking point. And that's exactly where most projects go to die. But what if that feeling, that moment of resistance, isn't actually a stop sign? What if it's the total opposite? What if it's an opportunity? This is where we flip the entire problem on its head. It all comes down to something we can think of as the muscle for willpower. Now, the science behind that urge to quit is actually fascinating. It all centers on this one specific part of your brain called the anterior midcingulate cortex, or AMCC for short. The easiest way to think about it is that this is your brain's dedicated willpower center. It's the little region that physically makes the call on whether to push through the hard stuff or just give up. And this right here is the most powerful idea in this entire explainer. That little willpower center in your brain, it acts just like a muscle. It doesn't get any stronger when things are fun or easy. It only grows when you force yourself to do things you'd really rather not do. So that feeling of resistance, that urge to quit, that's literally your brain in the middle of a workout. This makes it crystal clear. When you're just cruising along, doing easy, enjoyable tasks, your willpower center is basically asleep. No growth is happening. But when you hit that hard, frustrating part of a project and you consciously choose to push through it, bam, that's when it lights up. That is the moment of activation. It's the only time that willpower muscle of yours actually gets stronger. Okay, so if this thing really is a muscle, then how do we train it without, burning out? Well, that brings us to the really practical part of all this, what we're calling the 15% training. Let's just focus on this number for a second. 15%. Why this specific number? What's so special about it? Well, it turns out it's the sweet spot. It's just enough of a push to actually stimulate growth in that willpower muscle, but it's not so much that you get totally overwhelmed and just quit anyway. We call this whole system the 15% push. And hey, if you've ever set foot in a gym, you already know this principle. It's called progressive overload. To get stronger, you have to gradually, little by little, increase the weight or the reps. We are just taking that exact proven concept and applying it directly to your brain. So how do you actually do this? It's really simple. First, you just work until you feel that really strong urge to stop. You know the one. Second, you consciously decide to push past that feeling. Third, and this is the magic tick, you just extend your effort by about 15%. So if you plan to work for 60 minutes, you push for another 9. And finally, and this is absolutely critical, you have to rest and recover. Just like a real muscle, the growth happens during the downtime. Then, you just do it again. All right, let's pull all of these pieces together. Let's build our final structure. This is the architecture of completion. So here it is. This is your new framework, your blueprint for actually finishing what you start. Number 1, recognize the symptom. That urge to quit is not a sign of failure. It's a signal that training is about to begin. Number 2, understand the science. Your willpower center is firing up, and this is your chance for growth. And number 3, apply the system. Use that 15% push to deliberately and systematically build that muscle. And really, this is the ultimate takeaway. Being a finisher isn't some personality trait you're born with. It's not magic. It is a skill. And just like any other skill, it can be trained. The moment you start seeing that resistance as a workout, you can build the capacity to see any project, no matter how hard, all the way through to the end. So now you have the architecture, you get the science, and you have the system. The only thing left is to actually put it to work. So that leads to one final question. What is the first thing you're going to finish today?